Ann Arbor is one of the most beautiful cities in Michigan, but many don't realize Ann Arbor was not originally called Ann Arbor, and it would not have been founded where it was on the banks of the Huron River, but 40 miles southeast on the banks of the Huron River, where the Pink Castle now stands. Had mail service in 1824 been a little faster. Biographers say John Allen came to Detroit in January 1824, a fairly prosperous man, looking for even more fortune. And he met a man named Elisha Rumsey, a not quite as prosperous man, but still had a little capital to invest. They decided to join forces and scout west of Detroit to look for land to invest in and start a community. Starting in Monroe in February of 1824, they closely followed the Huron River northwest, always knowing they wanted land near a waterway that could provide propulsion for a mill. At the end of their second day of travel, they stopped and set up camp on the banks of the Huron River, where the Pink Castle now stands. In letters now lost to history, Allen was so captivated by the land the Pink Castle now sits on, he penned a letter that evening to his wife explaining to her how beautiful it was and how he wished they could make their claim here. But the river was just too winding and too serene. Allen gave the letter to some trackers heading back to Monroe to sell pelts, and he and Rumsey continued on the next day. 3 or 4 days later, they reached the widest and fastest moving part of the river so far, and they realized this would be perfect for their mill and the community they wanted to build. They spent a few days scouting the land and then hurried back to Detroit to register their claim of 600 acres at the Federal Land Office, land that would eventually become modern-day Ann Arbor, but not before a couple of twists. Once back in Detroit, John and Elisha made plans to return and start building on their newly purchased land. John received a letter from his wife telling him about a dream she had had, showing her the very land Allen had written her about, and in her dream she saw the two of them settled on a winding river just exactly as he described, and she hoped that this is the land he had decided to purchase. John Allen was in a bind. He and Elisha had already paid and named the land something else. So John wrote his wife back, "My love, my dear sweet love Anne, as beautiful as that land you dreamed of is, and we will visit that winding river often, we were forced to purchase further upriver because it was more agreeable for running a mill. So you know just how much I appreciate you and your dreams, I'm going to name the city after you. Please hurry here to your new home, Ann's Arbor." John rushed over to the land office and crossed out the name he had chosen, Lawnerland, which John believed was Swedish for land of the logs, to commemorate the trees they were going to harvest. Elisha's wife, Mary, traveled back with them to Ann's Arbor. All the way, Mary was perseverating over the fact that the city was going to be named after John Allen's wife and not her. Elisha reminded her, "My dear sweet Mary, your middle name is Anne. It's named after both of you." And that made Mary very happy to think about. Even if Ann Arbor wasn't founded on the banks of the Huron River, where the Pink Castle now stands, its history began here, in a dream. And who knows? If mail service had been faster in 1824, perhaps Ann Arbor would have been founded where the Pink Castle now sits. And maybe it would have been known as the city where people fall in love.